Good afternoon. We're about to start the meeting. We appreciate y'all coming here today to the Expo Center to observe the County Board of Election meeting. All of our meetings are open to the public, and we're happy to have anybody come in. Our goal is to have a safe, secure, fair, and transparent elections where every voter has an equal opportunity to vote. There are three ways that people can vote, and I'm sure most of you know this: early voting, absentee voting, and election day voting. There's a lot of misinformation out there this past week in the established media and social media about early voting changes that are being proposed for Granville County. To clarify at least one report, there is no proposal to move Oxford from Oxford to Creedmoor. That's not one of them. There also seems to be some confusion on how election board members are selected. We had several people wonder what was going on with that. The two major parties each nominate two or more people to the county board for the County Board of Elections, and that list then goes to the State Board of Elections, and they select the board members from that list who then serve a 2-year term. There's no limit to the number of terms a member can serve. The party of the person who sits as a state auditor selects the chairman of the county election board from the name or names that his party submitted. If you are interested in serving on the county election board, please let your party officials know. The Board of Elections does not work for the county commissioners. We work for the State Board of Elections. However, the county commissioners are the ones who pay for everything. They provide the money to run the elections office and conduct all the elections. We can only have as many polls as the county says we can afford. The state legislature is responsible for writing the laws, and the State Board of Elections writes the rules that pertain to all voting matters. The laws are contained in the North Carolina Statute 163, which okay, thank you. The most current versions can be accessed on the internet. If there's a question about a particular election law, you can usually find the answer in that 163. That also includes the number of days and hours designated for early voting. The county election board has no input into the length of early voting, how many days there are for early voting. The county election board is responsible for ensuring that the laws are followed. We cannot change any of the election laws. If there's a question about a law, we coordinate with an attorney at the county office or the state office, and our county elections director must implement whatever the laws require. Now, we are constantly in need of poll workers, and this is exciting to me to have this room full, because when we had 24% of the people show up for the primary and only 14% show up for the municipal elections, that's kind of sad. We need to get everybody we can out to vote. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what party you're in. Just come out and vote, and tell everybody, all your friends and relatives too. Training is provided for those people. Now, starting in November, they told me that the entry pay for poll workers is going to be bumped up to $15 per hour, in case anybody's interested. Please let your county party chairman know that you are interested in working the polls, because they nominate y'all to us. Unaffiliated voters, which I don't know if there's any here or not, but they should contact the county elections office and let them know that they are interested in working. And remember, the poll workers are the people who ensure there are no illegal actions going on during the voting process at the polling places. You're very important. So now we'd like to bring this meeting to order. The first person to talk, and we always do this in the beginning, is, pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm LaRue Allshafer. I'm the chairman of the board. That's Doug Smith is there. Debbie Butler, Sharon Alvarez. Probably everybody in here knows Sharon Alvarez. And Teresa Gilbert. And they might all know her too. I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry. Karen, would you want to come up to the podium and talk? You have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Karen McGee, 107 Warren Avenue, Oxford, North Carolina. I'm here today to speak about you, Mr. O'Shafer's comments on the May 28, 2026 copy of the Ledger News. You said that you had heard talk of complaints from Public Works employees as well as issues with traffic blocking the roads at the Oxford Public Works location. Number one, it is no surprise that employees might grumble that they can't park where they usually would during early voting. But given the vast majority of Public Works employees' jobs are out and about in Oxford, having the Public Works building as an early voting site has never interfered with the city employees doing their job. Two, traffic blocking the roads. While it may be an annoyance at extra traffic on Penn Avenue for drivers around the opening and late afternoon hours for early voting, it is no more annoying than a school bus blocking the roads in the early morning or afternoon hours. And early voting is only 2 or so weeks while school buses run 180 days. One of the things you said was, Mr. O'Shafer, that myself and everybody that comes in there thinks it's dangerous. It's very difficult to set a safe, secure place up to vote under these conditions. Perhaps you should have said that everybody you've spoken to thinks that way, because you did not speak to everybody, because I've never spoken to you, and you haven't spoken to probably over half the people here today. As for dangerous and difficult, I would beg to differ, as you presented no data for your assertion. In the last 14 years, there has only been one police report with respect to voting at Oxford Public Works, which was then doing early voting this past February. It was a disagreement about electioneering. No further action was taken. Also said in the paper, the board will also be considering a proposal to add an additional early voting site to the northern part of the county, a plan put forth by Commissioner Zelotes J. When it comes to talks of voter disenfranchisement, you said, sir, it doesn't make sense that there wasn't more previous conversation about voters from the north having to travel long distances to vote. Nobody cared about that when it was going on up north. As for a third voting site, if the Board of Elections wants to add a third voting site to the northern part of the county, fine. But moving the two current voting sites has nothing to do with adding a third. Actually, moving early voting from Oxford Public Works in the South Branch Library, where there is a higher density of voters, would disenfranchise mostly those who lack transportation and currently walk to those sites. There is no safe way for individuals, namely from Oxford, to walk here to vote. In no way would moving early voting sites out into the county make voting, as you and the state auditor say, equal for all voters. Time? As for traveling long distance, there are no grocery stores or banks out in the county, so it isn't most likely that residents out in the county could combine a shopping or bank trip with early voting, since they have to come to Oxford or Butner anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Gary Munn.
I'm Gary Munn from the Butner-Creedmoor area. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here and address you today. Thomas Jefferson clearly stated that he believed two things were fundamental to the survival of this 250-year-old experiment in democracy. One was an educated populace. The other was participation in the voting process by as many people as possible. Mr. Jefferson, who he's commonly still referred to as today, fought hard to let more people vote in early America. Back then, only rich white men who owned property could vote. Jefferson wanted to give the vote to a much larger group of people because he believed that people were the key to protecting our freedom and protecting us from the corrupt, rich few who wanted to dominate our society. Butner-Creedmoor is the most populous area of this county. Butner-Creedmoor has the highest growth rate in this county. Now, it's also true that Butner-Creedmoor has more felons than any other area of the county. But I can assure you the federal institutions don't let them out for early voting. I think the reason that you're trying to eliminate the Butner-Creedmoor site for early voting is because it shares a facility with the Granville Community College. Clearly, the State Board of Election is trying to eliminate sites that are convenient for students. It's not only here, it's all over the state. And that is a terrible injustice. In this case, this is a freestanding building. We only have a couple classrooms on the back side. There is no residency halls at Granville Community College. There are no dormitories. There's no student residence there. We don't have a large student population. We have a couple classrooms in the back of the building. So I hope that you will exercise integrity and judgment and realize that taking this location away from the largest, fastest growing community in the county is an injustice, and that is not what you were appointed to do. I realize that you are not elected, you are appointed, but you're appointed representatives for our community, and your responsibility is to get additional participation in the process, and this is wrong. Thank you.
Kristen Hefner.
Good afternoon. I am here to speak about the proposed changes to the early voting locations in Granville County. As a Butner resident, I'm really concerned about the removal of the South Branch Library as well. If this location is removed, the closest location for me to vote early will be 20 minutes away. I'm not alone in this. Many people in our community rely on early voting as the most convenient and flexible way for them to vote. Working class people often do not have the luxury of being off on election day and need to have the early voting period where they can go to a location to vote that is close to where they get their groceries, pick up their prescriptions, and run their errands. Knowing that these changes to the early voting sites are being suggested by the North Carolina State Auditor, who has never lived in Granville County and does not know anything about our county and the needs of the people who live here, is deeply concerning. Hearing the news that is coming out of other counties in North Carolina from their Board of Elections members that they are being pressured to vote in a certain way by Dave Bullock to remove and change early voting sites is unacceptable and should not be happening. These proposed changes to our early voting locations are also coming at the same time that our state legislature is considering shortening early voting period and changing many of the laws around voting. The bill that our state house is debating today would make it illegal for local and state elected officials to encourage people to vote, would make our state board of elections more partisan, and change many other things about how our elections are run. Our democracy only works if as many people as possible participate. It only works if our elections are free and fair and are accessible to all people. All of these changes being forced across every single county in North Carolina is blatant voter suppression. These changes that are recommended by partisan politicians in Raleigh who have never lived in Granville County should not be considered. We should not be making it harder for people to vote. We should be confident that you all, as our local board of elections, are making your decisions based on the data, needs, and opinions of residents in our community and not because of party loyalty or threats from people in Raleigh. I'm not opposed to an early voting site in northern Granville County to ensure that all people across the county have equal access to vote, but it should not come at the expense of the sites that are in the most densely populated areas and have been working for voters for many years. Closing and moving early voting locations is proven to reduce voter turnout, and it especially hurts Black people and people of color in our communities. The fact that both of the sites that are at risk of being moved are in areas that are majority Black and brown is not lost on me. If there is anything we should be willing to spend our money on in our country, it should be ensuring that people, especially people who had to fight long and hard for their right to vote, can practice their fundamental right to vote. Thank you.
Liz Purvis.
Good afternoon. My name is Liz Purvis. I live at 405 Sycamore Street in Oxford and also serve as the Granville County Democratic Party Chair. I am here because I love this county and because I believe the people of Granville deserve a board of elections that puts their access to the ballot above the preferences of someone sitting in Raleigh who does not know this place the way we do. Today, I want to talk about the early voting changes being proposed, who these changes harm, and I want to ask you, this board, to do what is best for the most voters in this county. What is being proposed, specifically the relocation of 2 of our 3 early voting sites out of Oxford and out of Creedmoor, away from the population centers of this county, is not a neutral administrative adjustment. It is a change that would make it harder for more Granville County voters to cast a ballot. Oxford Public Works in the heart of Oxford, South Branch Library in the heart of Creedmoor. These are not arbitrary locations, as others have said. They are accessible by foot, by the scant public transport that we have, by a short drive from a neighborhood where maybe you work 2 jobs and have 1 car and don't have time to drive 25 minutes when you had 3 minutes for a drive to your polling place before. You don't move a voting site away from the people it serves and call it a service. The third relocation from Wilton, not arguing about, get it, the school is closed. But I want to be specific about who is harmed when you move the sites out of city centers and into the less populous regions of this county. Disenfranchisement may be a 50-cent word, but what it means is that fewer people get to make their voices heard. We are talking about working class voters, about predominantly Black city neighborhoods whose residents have fought for, earned, and exercised their right to vote in the very center of these communities for decades. We are talking about Black, Hispanic, and white voters, many of whom are hourly workers, people without flexible schedules, people who, again, do not have the luxury of time to come here at 4 p.m. and talk with you today. We are talking about elderly residents. We are talking about voters without reliable transportation. When people make it harder to vote, it is never the powerful and the comfortable who are inconvenienced. It is always the people who are already working the hardest to make ends meet, who then have to work harder still to get to the polls. And I want to speak plainly about Dave Bolick's role in this. He is the state auditor. He is not a Granville County elections official. He is not a resident. He is a statewide elected, wielding influence over a local decision, and he does not have the standing, the context, or the right to do so. This board has the local knowledge, the legal authority, and the obligation outside of partisanship or party to make decisions about early voting access in Granville County. That is not the statewide auditor who is operating without our community's input, without our data, without our faces in front of them. You know this county, you know Oxford and Creedmoor are our city centers. They therefore ought to have voting sites. That's what I'm asking. Thank you for your listening ears.
Thank you. Kate Kelly. I got you.
Hi, I'm Fred Johnson, and I live in Butner. Put these on. I can't read this. Good afternoon, Chairman Alshafer and members of the board. I understand the board may present precinct population maps this evening. Obviously, you have. Population tells us where people live. Turnout tells us where people actually vote. And for a decision involving early voting locations, actual voter behavior is the more relevant measure. Through a public records request, I obtained the board voter turnout data. And I believe Doug actually aggregated some of it. Thank you. That data shows that the 2 sites proposed for change, Oxford and South Branch, currently serve roughly 4 out of every 5 voters in Granville County, early voters in Granville County. In the 2026 primary election, the South Branch served nearly twice as many voters per day as Tar River. In the 2024 general election, Oxford and South Branch again served roughly 4 out of every 5 voters in Granville County. Early voting allows voters to cast a ballot at any site in the county. As a result, turnout data tells us something population maps cannot, where voters actually choose to vote. The stated goal of this proposal is equal access. Equal access is a worthy goal. But if equal access is the objective, why are the proposed changes focused on the 2 sites that currently serve roughly 4 out of every 5 voters, early voters? Before changing the county's two most heavily used early voting sites, I respectfully ask the board to explain how this proposal improves voter access and what analysis demonstrates that voter participation will not be reduced. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Baba, Carr.
Hello to everyone, and hello to law enforcement too. Um, Hello to the people. My name is Baba Carr. I live at 212 Granville Street, Oxford, North Carolina, 27565. America is a democratic country. Granville County is a democratic county. Democracy comes from two words, demos, meaning people, and kratio, meaning rule. Thus we have democracy rule, or simply people rule. The voting by the people in Granville County has been going well for many years. In Oxford, early voting has taken place at Public Works on Penn Avenue. This has been going well, I dare say excellent, for many years now with no problems. The Public Works building is in the heart of the city, and there has been no major problem voting there. The people's opinion and suggestion is that voting should continue there. Here's a quick check on the opinion from local people about Public Works. It provides accessibility to everyone and that don't drive. It is central and suitable. Transportation is not a problem, but the Granville Expo Center is further away. This longer commute is difficult for some people, including me. I had to find a ride today and get here to speak to you. One person said, we need to put it where we can reach it. An eighth grade student of mine said, gas has gotten high and we can walk to Penn Avenue, but we have to drive to the Expo Center. The fact of the matter is that the Public Works building is definitely the better place for all. Thus, for the reasons stated, we should keep the location at the Public Works building for early voting. I'm asking that you all, as the appointed official who oversees our voting, listen to the people in the country. It should not be up to the state government or the North Carolina auditor, Mr. Dave Bollier, to decide where we vote in our county. It should be the people. Let us have the people in the local area decide for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Duncan. Did I say that correctly, sir? Did I say your name correctly? Okay.
There is no better time than the present to stand up for our rights and our privileges. My name is Jason Duncan. I'm the facilitator of the Granville political mobilization effort. And I was appalled when I saw the proposition to move the early voting site from the Public Works building to the Expo Center. There's no other way to look at this than it being a blatant attack to suppress black and brown votes in the city of Oxford. Oxford is 59.7% black. Public Works is a centralized location and has been beneficial to early voters of the black and brown community for years. Moving to the outskirts of the county would be detrimental to black and brown people, both able-bodied and those with special needs. Transportation being the main focus of that, as several people are able to simply walk to Public Works to cast their vote. Numbers show that most of the black and brown community utilize the early voting process. Changing location will hinder a lot of people from being able to cast their ballot. Since 2021, we've changed the culture of voting in Oxford, but also throughout Granville County, with having the most black and brown representatives on county, city, and county boards in the history of our county. So it's hard not to equate this proposition of changing sites with the fact that this has happened. Too often have our communities been duped by measures of these sorts, but we refuse to sit back and let this happen without voicing our opposition of it. The time for action is of the past, and as we haven't received anything close to what we asked for. We demand that you take this proposal off the table. Keep things fair, and as we've adhered to every crooked measure thrown our way at the polling sites, and continue to get astronomical numbers of people to the polls. Our ancestors died in order for us to have this privilege. So we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we not only keep the ability, but to also make sure that we keep fair and centralized locations in order for us to do it. To close, I simply say, do the right thing and oppose this bias, unfair, and unjust movement of our locations. Thank you.
Scotty Brooks. He's over there? Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Go, Scott.
Good afternoon to everyone in the building. I have a question. How much is enough? And enough is enough. And I'm not speaking to just this board. I'm speaking to the entire country. I want a show of hands if you were around on planet Earth in 1965. Raise your hand. That's a lot of people. Do you feel like you're a dinosaur? Do you feel like you're old? Do you feel like that was hundreds of years ago?
Scotty.
I just turned 55, June 1st.
Sir.
I don't feel old at all.
Sir.
I feel great. But
you're
my
here to
point
address
is,
the board, okay?
Pardon?
You're supposed to address the board, not the crowd. So please address the board.
I apologize. I will address the board. My apologies. So, as you saw, as the board saw, these people aren't relics. They're living human beings, viable. They got here. So my point is, 61 years ago, my grandmother, my mother, my father, they were fighting for the right to vote. And here I am, at 55 years old, doing the same thing. I need somebody to make that make sense, because the math ain't mathing. So if we need a third polling site, I feel the northern part of the county, they should have somewhere to vote. That makes sense. But to move from Public Works out here, I didn't want to come out here today because gas is high. But my point is, I live 3 minutes from Food Line, and I live 5 minutes from where I could vote. I'm not going to drive to Creedmoor Abundant because they have a Food Line when I can go right up the street and walk to one. It makes it convenient for people to vote. It should be convenient for people to vote. You can't tell me as a board that you want everybody to vote when you're going to make it hard for everybody to vote. So I pray, and I mean this literally, I'm going to pray that you all do the right thing. Do the right thing. You are put in these positions to do the right thing. We didn't come this far just to come this far. Thank you.
Darrell Moss.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Chairman, Board. My name is Darrell Moss. I live at 207 Cozart Street in Creedmoor. And this afternoon, I'm going to be speaking first as a Granville County taxpayer, as a voter since 1976 here in Granville County, as a candidate for elected office and as an elected official. I was elected Creedmoor City Commissioner in 1989, where I served until 1999. In 1999, I was elected Mayor of Creedmoor, where I served until 2017. And more recently, in 2025, I was elected as a Creedmoor City Commissioner. Now, I'm speaking as a city commissioner. I am not speaking for my board, so I did want to make that abundantly clear this afternoon. I will get right to it. So, the assault on our democracy has found its way from Washington, D.C., through Raleigh to Granville County. That is where we are. And to be very candid with you, I find this historically obscene. In 1986, there was a lawsuit, McGee versus Granville County. Your first speaker, Karen McGee, her dad was in that lawsuit. There were four other black people that were involved in that. Ms. Aurelia Burton from the Antioch community, Mr. Eugene Fields from Oxford, Reverend Lacey Joyner from Oxford, and myself. Prior to 1988, no black had ever been elected in Granville County. One of those men is sitting in this room today, Dr. Cozart, Tony Cozart, was elected as a result of that lawsuit. And we have others, we've had many others, and we're very proud of that. So as Scotty said, it is very disheartening to find ourselves not back from 1965, but back from 1988 to where we stand today. It's terrible. Now, I would say this. I'm going to fast forward to 2025. I understand the desperation that you are experiencing right now. I got to see it firsthand at the early vote site in Creedmoor at early voting. I understand it. It was an incredible period of time where we had a great turnout of African Americans. And I can understand why that is upsetting to some people. I get it. I completely understand. And on this issue of public safety, I will tell you during that early vote time, the Butler of Public Safety was called to the early vote site back-to-back days to address issues with the Republican Party, debating amongst themselves. So that is where we are, sir. So I hope that you will take what you're hearing. All the other speakers that have gone before me have done a great job. There's no need for me to say anything else, but I do hope that you will think about what you're hearing and to do what's best on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Oldenburg.
Brad Oldenburg, 6588 Huntsboro Road, Oxford. I don't know where to start here. A lot of emotion, a lot of, I mean, it looks to me like when people feel strongly about something, like they should about voting, they're here, right? People came here. And is there any reason why that same effort can't be made to come to a location like the Expo Center to vote for early voting and or election day if this is your precinct? I don't understand that, right? It's a much bigger location, unlimited parking, good safe traffic flow, and it's also the emergency backup voting facility should there be a disaster of some kind. So I think that there are a lot of things that can be done to help get people to the poll here if needed, cart and other types of things. But it just, geographically, it seems and appears that, dividing it up along those lines might be a better option. When I ran for county commissioner in District 2 4 years ago, let's talk about the North End a little bit. And I've heard some support, and I think that's good. Probably 9 out of 10 doors of the 1,000 doors that I knocked on wanted to know why we didn't have early voting in the North. And it made a lot of sense. And as I said, I've heard some support here today. It didn't make any sense to me that voting was in the central portion of the county and then in the south, two voting locations in the southern portion of the county. Didn't make sense to me. I had a few conversations with the Board of Education at that time. And after some back and forth and one of the meetings and comments and discussion, I was actually told by the previous chairman of that board that the northern voters had election day to vote. Now let that sink in. We're going to disenfranchise, I've heard a lot of that today, 55, a geographic area of 55% of the county, and we are a rural county, right? And they had election day to vote. And they, you know, drive the 30, 35 miles if they wanted to go early, right? Now, I've seen what's happening with Creedmoor and, you know, going out to Tar River as a potential proposal. For most from that location, that's another 10, 12 minutes. It's 10 minutes here from downtown Oxford, okay? So if we want to be fair, and as I've heard many of you say, have the opportunity for everybody to vote in the county, maybe looking at it from a geographical perspective is a stronger way, and then we work together to try and figure out how we get people to the polls where they need to be. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Come on now, come on, please, please, please don't do that. Please show some decorum. Mike Magnanti.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Michael Magnanti, and I live at 4291 Belltown Road. I came to address you all today because this is about fairness, and this is about being equal for all of our voters in all of the county. And since early voting began, we've not had an early voting site north of here, north of Oxford. And so those people that live in the northern part of the county had a more difficult time to experience early voting. And you may not like that, but that is the truth. It only makes sense that we would have an early voting site in the northern part of the county where the voting residents of Bullock and of the Stovall communities would have the opportunity, the same opportunity to vote as the members of the Butner and Wilton communities. It only makes sense. It's only fair. There is also a financial implication to having 4 early voting sites. And the county commissioners understand that we are not a wealthy county. And so this is not just we don't like Butner. It has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is what is the easiest access at the polling locations? And to say that the Expo Center is not an easier access than the Oxford Public Works is completely false. That means that you've never been to Oxford Public Works, because if you were, you would know that it is much more difficult access than it is this location here. And the other reason why it only makes sense is because the Expo Center is the in lieu of location for the county right now. So are you trying to tell me that the Oxford Public Works is a better option, and in the event of a calamity,
Please.
thank you for giving me the time that I gave you without commenting. I appreciate it. The Oxford Public Works location, what we would have to do is take all of the ballots and bring them here in the event of a calamity. And that doesn't make any sense. We should have this as the early voting site. It only makes sense. And it only makes sense that we have a polling place in the northern part of the county. Thanks for letting me address you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Sharon Alvarez. Teresa Gilreath.
LaRue Alshafer.
Debbie Butler, present.
Doug Smith.
Okay, the first agenda, consider the relocation of election day for polling place for Wilton Precinct. Okay. Sir. Thank you. The first thing we're going to consider is the relocation of election day polling place for Wilton Precinct. Now, that, we lost our polling place. They closed the school. There's nowhere else to go, so it has to be moved. And we're moving it to Tar River, and that's for election day only. Do I have a motion on that?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to relocate the Wilton precinct to Tar River Elementary School for the election day voting.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yes, have we discussed this with the principal of Tar River Elementary School and the school board, superintendent of schools?
Yes.
So they're aware that this is what we want to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
No. Aye.
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 Aye. Chair, that's unanimous. That's unanimous, thank you.
Please speak up.
We're trying. You'd think with all this modern equipment that it'd be a lot easier, wouldn't you? It's as frustrating for, it's as frustrating for us as it is for you. Next, we're looking at the potential for having a voting site in northern Granville County in Stovall. Pardon? In Stovall, we looked, Ms. Alvarez and I and Tanya went and looked at the locations that were recommended by the different people. The senior center was supposed to have been designed with a room for the election, but apparently they didn't coordinate with anybody on the election board because the room they designed is not really adequate. So what we have left is the library. And the library is used for election day voting anyway, so it's already cleared. It's ready to go. Do we get a motion on that?
Yes, I would like to move that we approve a northern voting site for early voting to be located in the Stovall area. Determination as to whether it will be the new senior center or the library may yet to be decided.
It's going to be the library.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so moved then.
Discussion?
Yeah. You want to go to it?
Well, I'm concerned with us possibly moving a voting precinct for early voting in the northern part of our county. And it's not because I think they're not deserving of it. I don't think Granville County can afford to do the very things at this late notice to accomplish that task. With regards to all the things that have been said here today, with regards to where the population and the consistency of voting participation takes place in our county, it is not necessarily in that area of of our community. And it's not that they're not deserving, but it is about the population. And if this were to go to the state board, that is one of the considerations that they will take into effect, is how does it impact our populace? And when we take a look at the voting numbers in our current voting precincts in South Branch and here in Oxford, it does not support the very idea of moving everything to the other end of the county. And it's not about convenience, it's about consistency and making sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate in this voting process. Because in my mind, if you're in Stovall, you're already used to coming, and that's a lame excuse in a sense, but that is how our county is laid out. There will never be total equity in any of these decisions that we make. But given the fact that we're actually favoring, by the time we finish doing all of the changes that are proposed today, we will end up with all of our voting precincts in Republican territory, non-Democratic territory, non-African American territories. None of those things would benefit us as a community. None of those things would. I mean, so given that fact, there has to be a balancing of our voting constituency. There has to be a balance of showing that you regard all the citizens in this county. And sometimes fair is not, equal is not always what it should be. I mean, we've been through this separate but equal and all of this other stuff, and it has never worked the way that we all thought it should, because one group always wanted this and another one wanted that. So it's never going to work at this way. But if we're going to do this, there was plenty of opportunity for us to have addressed this in a more timely fashion and get it on the budget and plan it accordingly and possibly build a facility to accommodate the very thing that we were hoping that it was going to do. And we failed that. Not necessarily this board, but as far as the planning of that very facility. I mean, so guys, we have to understand that these are our tax dollars that we are spending and moving around to accommodate what? We're shooting ourselves in the foot by manipulating rules to benefit one group over another and calling it equity on this side, but you disenfranchise somebody on the other side. So in my mind, guys, we need to calm down as a community, agree on what we want our community to be. Let me just go ahead and tell you guys what I really want to say. What I really want to say, one of those Granville County folks who have been born and raised here in Granville County. I have watched our community grow. Watch everybody come into our communities and have all these grand ideas. And sometimes in my mind, I think, you know, what are some of the people running from? And when they come here, they have all these ideas and stuff. But many times they don't know what this community has been through. I mean, so I am one of the few people that have been born and raised here, educated here. On this board, I'm the only, well, Tanya, only person who's been born and raised here to understand who we are, what we do, how we do it, and been here all of my life. I'm one of the few elected officials that have actually done every job that any poll worker has done, the lowest job as a greeter, to being an elected official, and the last stop for me is to be on this board. I take this job seriously. I have read this book, understand these rules, and we have to understand that partisanship has no place when you can't afford to play in that type game. And Granville County, we're struggling to make ends meet with regards to how we're going to keep our schools open, supporting Tanya and paying poll workers the salaries that they need for the hard work that they do every day. We can't even do that well. I mean, so we have to understand that everything that you think we should have, we can't afford to have it. Okay, so I am sorry, but it is, I do not that I don't agree that Northern Granville should have a polling place, but we're not ready for Northern Granville to have that polling place just yet. And with better planning, I assure you that this board wants us to make sure that we have fair and free elections and everybody will have equal access, but we're not there yet.
You know, I agree with a lot of what you said. We're not there yet. It's been 20 years that we've had early voting and none in the north and the people up there. And you know, there's all races and creeds and colors and sexes that live up there. It's not like it's a utopia white neighborhood. It's not. But how long are we going to wait to try and fix something? When we can afford it? Well, the county commissioners put a tax increase in to help afford things, and it got voted down.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
I agree with a lot what Therese has to say. However, all of the arguments that I've heard, and most of what I've heard from the audience even, those questions should be directed at the county commissioners, because they're the ones who have approved the budgets for all this. So if it's a matter of money, and we know how we struggle in the Board of Elections to get them to understand our financial needs, that's where this argument needs to be taken. Take it to your county commissioner.
Right now, Doug, we had a conversation when we had a meeting up in Stovall. LaRue was there, Tanya was there, I was there. Not county commission. The county manager was there. The deputy county manager was there. And one of their employees was there. The director of library services was there. The director of senior services was there. And we looked at both locations, and one of the things the county manager told us two things. One, the board of county commissioners does not have the budget to have a site up in Stovall. And two, though a county commissioner might have mentioned that it'd be a good idea to have a site up there, it was the Granville County Board of Elections' duty to make that decision. So since we don't have the money from county commissioners to put a site there, because if they think it's so great, they're paying for Oxford, they're paying for South Branch, they're paying for Tar River, they can pay for Northern Granville County too. And that's how I look at that. I understand that, we want being fair and equitable are two different words and they have two different meanings. And since Granville County Commissioners are supposed to pay for the elections, they should be paying for a copier machine for our office. They should be paying for a Seams license that we need in our office. They should be paying for MiFi that Tanya needs in our office. And they should pay for any other precincts that we deem necessary. Our board is to make the decision. They don't make the decision. They pay for us to exist. And since there is no money to pay for a site up in Stovall, and hasn't obviously been for the last 26 years, we can wait a little bit longer.
Therein lies the catch-22. We have to make a decision to get the county to come up with the funds. Or do we wait for the county to come up with the funds before we make the decision?
Work on that. But for right now, to have this situation pop up just like it did when we heard about it, 2-3 weeks ago, and we're supposed to have this done by November, that's not going to happen. I don't think it should happen.
I tend to disagree, but anyway.
Mr. Chair, LaRue, guys, I had a conversation and sent a couple of emails because I'm one of those people who need clarity, and I also love my numbers. And I did reach out to our board chair and I asked him for, I emailed him on May 26th and I asked for clarification. Are the voting precincts changes recommended by the Granville County Republican Party or the North Carolina Board of Elections? On May 27th, I received a response from the board chair, LaRue, the following, that the auditor, the guidance is to have at least 3 polling places in the county, one in the north, center, and south of the county to give all residents of the county equal opportunity to participate in the early voting. On May 27th, I requested the following from the board chair. Can you provide the state auditor's request or info where I can access this specific request to have the precincts in the north, central, and South and Granville County. The chairman of the board response was, I don't know where it was written. I was told in a meeting in Raleigh last fall. Don't remember the exact date. And I'm sharing this that there is clearly no transparency in all of this. If we knew about this last fall, we could have been better prepared to deal with it. We could have had this addressed with our county commissioners and the whole 9 yards. So I am mortified because I am a planner. I want us to do right by you. I want us to provide the level of service that we should be able to provide for our community for voting, but we can't do it when things aren't transparent. And when we found out about this, it was in our May 20th meeting. And that is not how a democracy should work, and nor should a board that is representing Granville County and something as important and volatile and sometimes so difficult to grapple is somebody else's right to do something as simple as choose who they want to represent them. I mean, so guys, we have to do this differently. It has to be transparent. It has to be timely. And we can make better decisions when we're forthright and truthful.
I can tell you that I've talked to Mr. Bullock 2 times. And one time was when he came to a meeting here and he introduced himself to me, at which time he did not discuss any of this. The other time was after I was selected to be the chairman. I went to a meeting in Raleigh, and he said, my philosophy is, and my goals are, and my vision is as a leader that we should be doing this. So, I only spent 21 years in the Army, and when the leader says that they have a vision and they would like to see it implemented, you start to do that when you work for that leader. So that's why I didn't keep notes. I didn't take pictures. None of that. The boss said, my vision is we have free and equal voting across the county in north, south, and central, and that's what we're working towards. And actually, this has been discussed before. And again, I didn't write it down because I didn't know it was going to be a big challenge, but.
No, LaRue, sorry. I understand rank and file. I've served in the federal government for 31 years in local and in Washington, D.C. And when the boss says certain things, yeah, you keep it in the back of your mind and say, yeah, we know this is what they want. But in Granville County, we're the boss when it comes to what's going to go on with elections. Please. And there are 100 counties in North Carolina, and I'm sure some of them are going to be able to do what he suggested and some are not. I don't have a problem with having a site up north. I have a problem with the fact that the county commission is supposed to pay the freight for the elections, and they said they can't do it. And they definitely made sure that we knew that it was our responsibility. So that means we're going to take the heat for whichever way this goes.
Well,
now, we want to do this. This is something we maybe plan for next year. We could talk to county commissioners, find out when the schedule for budgeting is, and see, if in another year or 2 or maybe 3, we have the money to move a site up that way. But for finding out in the middle of the end of May, May 27, 28 to now, no, we're not ready for that. We don't have the money for it. They already told us they're not going to pay for it. And I don't see us paying for it at the expense of other precincts that they are paying for.
And guys, you have to understand that if we do not have a unanimous vote here today, that it will be going to the state board and they will make their decision for us. And that is why I was compelled to just put it on the table so that you will know where this is coming from. Because if we don't have a unanimous vote, that is who will be making their decisions for us. And it is not in our best interest to do this. The statutes merely say that our voting precincts need to be based upon the proximity of our populace. Okay, and that is where, guys, that is in the southern end of this county. Okay, that is where our voting, any way you look at those numbers, there is no way that we can close South Branch. Yeah. Okay. Look at what the Oxford precinct represent, that is next door to the closest voting precinct that we have currently to our Board of Elections. This place is supposed to be our disaster emergency building, but now it has become a voting precinct. So how can it serve as both? And I've always been concerned about that, but that is what it is. I mean, so guys, we have to understand the ramifications of what our laws are dictating that we are supposed to be doing, and because we probably will, that if we don't have unanimous vote, somebody else is going to make the decision for us, and that is not what a democracy is. It is not what we should be doing, and our populace is exactly where our voting precincts are right now. It serves our populace. It works, and it is what we should be doing as a community. We don't need people to totally distrust every elected official in our community for every decision. I mean, is it self-serving? I don't know, but but anyway, we have to understand that unnecessary changes does not benefit us unless there are legitimate, justified reason for doing X, Y, and Z, and it benefits us as a community as a whole. This is not helping us.
Thank you. Well, any other discussion?
Yeah, my thought was, and my thought process on this is, and I kind of agree with Sharon, in that, it's hurrying things, okay? And it's a contentious decision. But at some point, we got to start pushing some buttons.
Yep.
And we start, and to me, this is, as uncomfortable as what our decision may be for a lot of people, it's getting the ball rolling. Now, is there going to be some changes here and there? I've got nothing against having 4 locations. The county commissioners say we can't afford it. Well, maybe put on pressure on our county commissioners and say, hey, you figure out a way to afford it. Yeah, and that's, to me, why I feel the way I do about pushing forward. So,
yeah, but there's no need for us to do this right now. If you feel that way, I can get with you on that. We can sit down and make that a priority for next year.
Okay.
Where we can sit down and discuss it and plan it. Because after 26 years of them not having a site up there, they can't wait one more year. I'm asking this board to think about one thing before I be quiet. If we're going to do this the way some of us think it should be done, I'm asking the members of the board to see this as a profile in courage. I understand following the leader. I get that. But sometimes when you're in positions, whether you're elected officials or appointed officials, sometimes you have to go against what some folks think should be and what we need to do.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like profile and courage. I'm asking you for that.
Thank you. Well, I think,
I'd like to call the question.
yes, it's time to vote. Now we're going to vote by roll call.
Mr. Chair, if I could just interject briefly before the vote.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure everyone on the board, I think it's been discussed, so I just want to make sure everyone in the audience as well as all board members. So if the board collectively, each one of these items that's on is going to collectively make up the early voting sites and plan. So if we don't have unanimous approval as to all locations, then essentially, as been alluded, it would be incumbent upon a member or members of the board to then petition the state board, and then that's where the process would go from here. So if you do not have unanimous decision on one, you're going to have to kick everything to the state, assuming one of the board members makes that petition.
Correct.
Just for additional background, there's state statutes require a minimum early voting. So even if there's not agreement, there's statutory framework for early voting that at a minimum will be at the County Board of Elections. But assuming if there's not a full agreement, it would require a board member to petition the state. So just before I just want to make sure that was the gravity of whatever you guys decide on this particular one, it does permeate through the other decisions as well.
Correct.
So are you saying that if we don't agree on the issue of North, having a site in the North, we can't vote on the issue of South Branch and Oxford?
You can collectively, and I'd recommend collectively, individually vote on each one. The plan that would go to the state would be a resolution that would provide all voting sites. Obviously, if there's agreement as to particular voting sites, you would think the state board would listen on that. But it's so far it seems like certainly the Wilton precinct passed unanimously. But just wanted to make sure that before you guys voted, if there's not unanimous decision on a particular decision, it would be incumbent upon a board member to petition state board to make that decision for you all. Yeah.
Yes.
And if that happens, will Wilton transferring Wilton precinct over to Tar River, will they be able to continue with the process of making that happen? Or you're saying everything that's on the agenda?
Yeah, I think it would
will
be
be at a standstill because we don't agree on perhaps one of the issues on the agenda.
Correct.
Now, what I understand from the state is that I don't know, have any of y'all watched the hearings of last year on the early voting places that did not agree on everything?
Yeah, most of the early voting issues that they had was usually one issue. It wasn't like 3 different sites they were moving.
Well,
they were gonna have
right.
one site in Cumberland County had issues last year, and there was an option between 2 different locations to have early voting. And some folks felt early voting A was appropriate. Somebody felt early voting B was appropriate, but they didn't have. We have a opening, a closing, and a moving.
Correct.
They only had to choose between 2 different sites.
But let me just say that what happens is when he said that they petition the state, that when you petition the state board for this, there's a hearing, and the majority will present their side, the minority would present their side, and the people on the state board will listen to it, and they will do whatever they deem to be the most appropriate way. Now, I've watched them, and I've seen them. They even ordered a new election in one case on a municipal election, but they listen to everything, and you present your case. It's a hearing. This is a meeting. They have a hearing for this, so. Once it's presented to them, then they would make the decision. And I've seen them go against the majority, and I've seen them go against the minority. So we don't know what they're going to do.
My question is, are we going to, depending on how we vote for, who's this, for the chair?
Yes, I believe it was
Okay.
just for the record, a copy of a written statement of the public comment that was given.
Okay.
Sorry.
When we vote on this issue of whether we're going to have a North Granville County early voting site, how does that impact the next 2 items on the agenda?
So again, what's submitted to the state is a plan of implementation. If there's unanimous decision as to the plan, then you have a plan. If you do not have unanimous decision as to the plan in its entirety, then it's going to, you essentially do not have a full plan. For example, what was approved last year, you had a plan that was all done. What would be done for this year, you would not have a plan, and it would require petition to the state board for consideration and approval.
I understand. I'm not sure you get it, but we have 3 issues we have to talk about today.
I think the answer is
So we don't unanimously approve the first issue. We don't even discuss the next 2.
Oh, no.
I think you would still want to, certainly you would still discuss it and vote.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's the question.
I misunderstood you then, because I thought, I didn't understand that's what you meant, or I just said that right from the get-go.
Oh,
We're
okay.
going to vote on each one.
Okay.
And with the Wilton one, since it's unanimous, when the state board hears it, they will probably just set that one to the side and say that's done. and then they're gonna address the others.
But can Tanya continue to do what she needs to do to make
Yes.
the preparation in the
Yeah, yeah.
meantime?
Now, you know,
Okay.
our early voting that we send in to them each year, that's due July 24th. Now, I'm hoping that if we have to go to the state has their hearing before July 24th, so we don't lose any time. I don't know their schedule,
Right.
but that's what I'm hoping for, so that when July 24th comes along, we have a plan. It's unanimous, or, well,
It won't-
doesn't matter whether it's unanimous
Yeah.
or not, because they're gonna decide, but that's what we're a month ahead of time.
Okay.
Well, our statute sort of dictates how this is going to play out. It says in section 163-166.35, it talks about early voting, the sites and the hours of early voting. And it says, and I'm going to read what it says because I copied it straight from the statute book. It says these sites must be approved by the state board as part of a plan for implementation approved by both the county board of elections and by the state board, which shall also provide adequate security of the ballots and provisions to avoid allowing persons to vote who have already voted. The county board of election may propose in its plan for implementation not to offer early voting in the county board of elections office. The state board may approve that proposal in plan for implementation only if the plan for implementation includes at least one site reasonably proximate to the county board of elections office, and the state board finds that the sites in the plan implementation as a whole provide adequate coverage of the county's electorate. If the county board of election has considered a proposed plan or plans for implementation and has been unable to reach unanimous vote, a member of the board of that county board of elections may petition the state board to adopt a plan for it. If petitioned, the state board may also receive and consider alternative positions from another member or members of that county board. The state board may adopt a plan for implementation for that county, and the state board in that plan shall take into consideration whether the plan for implementation disproportionately favors any party, disproportionately addresses or disenfranchises race, discriminates against any group, or benefits any candidate. Okay, and so those are the things that the state is going to be taking into consideration if we were to go before them and make these type of decisions, and it is clearly written in the statute book.
Yes. You're right.
My comment was simply a kind of a final urging if you didn't wish to end your discussion and dialogue, if you felt there was further discussion that needed to be had, and if there's potential grounds to reach a unanimous decision, I would explore that. But if it's otherwise ready for the vote, then that's certainly the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Attorney, the way I understand it, all of these 4 items, although listed separately on our agenda, are part of one resolution. And any non-unanimous vote on any one of these things would send the entire resolution to the state board.
Upon a petition by a member of the board.
Yeah.
That's what I mentioned to you. That's what I was mentioning to you early when I made the comment about making a move to divide. Because if we have a resolution with 4 things on it and we don't agree on one of those things, the other 3 things don't matter because this whole thing is one resolution.
Right, but they'll look at it and they'll say, if there's 3 unanimous and 1 not, is that what you mean?
Well, we don't know yet
No,
with the other 2, but yeah, let's just say right now we got 1 unanimous,
Okay.
and we looking at the second option where we're gonna vote.
Right.
If that's not unanimous, then we still have 2 other issues, Oxford moving and South
Yes.
Branch closing.
Yes.
So that's it, we're done, because now we have to send everything up to the state board?
Well,
Or do we get to, no, but I mean, when it goes to the state board, we should have a vote on all 4 of these issues.
Yes.
Oh, so that, we're gonna have a vote on all 4 of these?
trying to get to a
Okay,
vote
because
now.
other than that, I would think that we would separate them, make
But
them
we need
separate.
them to- Yes, they need to see what we want for each one, or what.
Yeah, okay.
And then if and when it's petitioned, they'll. You're not ready for a vote, stand up. Excuse me, sir. Excuse Excuse me, sir. Please sit down.
Let's go beyond local control.
Should have been made at the beginning of their year. Right in the middle of an election.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. I believe the vote has, the question has been called.
Your mic's not on.
Under Robert's rules, she said move to the question. Under Robert's rules of meetings, she said raise the question. Well, maybe yeah. They called the question the motion. That means that we have to vote on it. So we're going to vote on this right now. Can't you what? Not once it's been questioned. Okay, now, we're gonna vote. Sharon?
No. No.
Yay.
Debbie? And the chair votes yes. And the chair votes yes. So, now the next one is the South Branch Library. Closure of the Creedmoor for early voting, the South Branch Library. We just voted on the motion to open this, to have a place in Stovall for an election. Early voting. Pardon? Oh, you didn't hear? It was 3, 4, and 2 against. Okay? I'm sorry. The motion carried with 3 votes. Okay, now, next, we're gonna do the closure of the Creedmoor early voting site.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to close the South Branch Library as an early voting site.
She lives in Tar River.
Do we get a second?
I will second.
Okay. Now, let me tell you, I've talked to some commissioners, and they called me, one in particular called me, and wanted to know about closing that. And I told him that the county said they don't have the money, and I specifically said, I do not want to close any of them. Any of them. The more the merrier for me. But the county commissioners have to, it's the money. The county commissioners have to come up with the money. Or do we? Okay. We're not going to answer that kind of question, man. You know what I mean? Y'all.
LaRue, you said the county commissioner said they can't afford to keep South Branch open?
No, he didn't say that. I told him that if he would get the money and a location to have it, whether it's at South Branch or somewhere close by, that we would love to have that polling place. as the board, I spoke for the board, in fact, 'cause they said the board would love to have that.
So people know it's changed. To let voters know that things have changed. So where's that? Yeah.
So,
Mr. Chair, if I
and we're
could
not-
just interject, the public comment period has concluded.
It has.
We need to keep the dialogue between the board members.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
So right now, we have a motion to close South Branch Library as an early voting site.
Correct.
And it's been second.
Correct.
So now we're into discussion.
We can discuss it, or we can vote on it if your previous discussion covered it.
No, my previous
Okay.
discussion
All right,
did not
good,
cover South
good.
Branch.
Well, yeah, I was a little concerned.
No, it did not.
Go ahead.
The South Branch Library, because I have some notes, remains available for elections. No one is asking us to leave that location. Now, is that true?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we have trained and experienced staff who are willing to work all required days and hours. The site has the supplies, equipments, and infrastructure necessary to serve the voters effectively. South Branch is a well-established location familiar to the voting public. It serves Butner, Creedmoor, and Tally Ho, representing 12,515 registered voters. As an early voting site, it also serves voters from throughout the county. Located at exit 191 off of Highway I-85, Highway 56, and situated in a highly populated and heavily traveled area. Closing South Branch would leave only one early voting site in the southern end of the county. And we currently have 2 early voting sites there because the population warrants it. Tar River serves 11,888 registered voters, and if you combine South Branch's 12,515 registered voters, you're looking at approximately 24,000 registered voters for voters to service in an area that currently supports only one early voting site. So we're going to have 2 early voting sites today, 1 early voting site with 24,000 registered voters that could go to that site during early voting. The consolation would reduce staffing because we're not going to combine the staff. We're not going to combine the judges, the poll workers, the greeters, the curbside folks, because the idea, I guess, was to send them up to the north if we agreed to open that. We're going to have the participation is going to continue to increase because citizens are recognizing the importance of voting. This November midterm election will include federal and state House and Senate races, judicial contests, county commissioners, sheriffs, soil water conservation district, and forgive me if there's any other election that I haven't mentioned. In addition to concentrating voters into a single site, we must consider our ability to recruit and retain enough judges and poll workers, because I can guarantee you, poll workers are looking at what we're doing here today, and they're deciding if this is going to be their last election, if the primary was going to be their last election. The average age of poll workers in Granville County in North Carolina is 66. Approximately 63% are 65 and older. Constant changing in election laws, procedures, voting locations create challenges for voters, judges, and poll workers alike. Given the number of voters served by South Branch, I do not believe it makes sense to close a site that has successfully served the community for years and clearly serves a population large enough to justify 2 voting sites.
I don't disagree with that, but there's no money.
You're telling me that county commissioners don't have money to pay for South Branch and continue to be
I'm
open?
telling you what the county manager told me. I don't know how much money the county commissioners have. Okay.
This is the first time I'm hearing that. The county commissioner, the county manager said we didn't have money to open a site in Stonewall.
No, he said we have enough money for 3 sites.
Well, we have 3 sites, LaRue. We have Oxford, South Branch, and Tar River.
That
Those
is
are the
true.
3 sites that we currently have. So are you saying we don't have money for Tar River, for South Branch?
That's what they said. They said if we open one in the north, there's not enough money for a port.
We're not opening one in the north yet.
Well, no,
We voted, we did not have a unanimous vote on
I
that.
understand that. I understand that. Which I did. I'm sorry.
You know, if the comments in the peanut gallery would be quiet, maybe you could actually hear the discussions going on up here.
All right, all right. Hello? Can I say something, please? I understand how everybody feels. We've been wanting people to come to our Board of Election meetings many times. I'm happy to see this many people here. But if you're going to not be calm and listen to what we're talking about, you're not going to understand what's going on. We already had the voting, what do you call it, the public comments. Now you're here to observe what we discuss. Please, please, because we have things that we want to say and we want you to be able to hear it. Please.
Thank you, Sharon. Better put than I
But
did.
comments about peanut gallery is not
I
going to help.
apologize for that. I apologize.
So because we're all passionate about this. You can tell, Teresa and I know you are for your side, but comments about peanut gallery is not going to help.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
Well, apologize to them. No. I mean, even if the state board decides that we're going to have a site up in the north, this idea of having 24,000 registered voters in the south, that's ridiculous. To me, that's ridiculous.
Well, and I agree, Sharon, but there's 24,000 registered voters. 24% of them showed up for the primary.
That's a primary. This is a midterm election in November. You can bet we'll have 70% voter turnout, especially after this meeting.
I hope we do have 70%.
So if you're looking at, if you want to knock off, make it 14,000, that's still a lot of people for Tar River to handle.
And it's at a school.
Yes, it is. Any comments?
I would love to keep something in the Creedmoor area. My concern is for the safety of the students, and as the population grows and that voting location gets busier and busier and busier, it's only a matter of time until something tragic happens. I've been to that location.
What are you talking about, Tar River?
I'm talking about the South Branch Library.
So you want to move South Branch because something might happen to one of the students crossing the street?
No,
I'd rather do it ahead of time.
Do you realize the age group at South Branch that goes to the early college there?
Yes.
They're older kids than the ones at. So if you want to use that argument, think about Tar River. Tar River has school-age kids. You have elementary kids. Now, when you talk about South Branch, we're talking about kids who possibly are driving themselves to that school, all right, are able to get themselves, and they're in high school, and then they're the smart ones. They're the ones in early college.
And the Tar River location is in a gymnasium that is separated from the school.
This goes in direct contradiction of us making well-informed decisions based upon the populace of and the voting electric of our community. This does not make, it's not justified.
I disagree. I disagree. And
I
I've been to
disagree.
Tower River as well. And yes, we use the gymnasium. It is removed a reasonable distance away from the school itself. You don't have a lot of foot traffic going back and forth from one side of campus to another. The parking lot is bigger at Tar River. That parking lot at South Branch is crowded, oftentimes has school buses in there. It is just, those kids, I know they're older, but half the time they're walking along, talking to each other, looking at their phone and not paying attention.
Well, wouldn't it have been a better decision for this board to have chosen South Branch, Oxford Public Works, and what's the other one? Not Tar River. Close Tar River.
Stovall.
And open up the new one in Stovall if these are going to be our concerns. But we can't pick and choose and then use rationales after you've already made the vote to open up the one in in Stovall. I mean, so guys, this is not what our community wants us to do. There is no legitimate rationale for this move. I recommend move that we table this until we can understand where are we going with this and the justifications for these changes.
I don't see a justification. Somewhere along the way, somebody decided that the southern part of the county needed 2 early voting sites. And they have the population to justify it. Now, all of a sudden, we don't need it anymore. You're looking at,
I'm
there are
not saying we don't need it anymore.
3,293 registered voters up in Stovall, between Stovall and Oak Hill. Stovall, Sassafras and Oak Hill. And then I just said 24,000 down in the southern end of registered voters.
I'm not saying we
And if
don't
you want to
need-
go with that, voter turnout, you'd be looking at even less people being served up in the north than
I'm
in
not
the south.
saying that we don't need something in the south. My question is with the viability of the South Branch itself.
9,420 people voted there in for the presidential election. We were able to get that many people voted
I know.
without any
And as
accidents.
population grows, traffic in and out of that limited space is going to increase. And
we're not able to put our heads together and figure out a way around that.
We're
We
already
actually have to
having
shut it
issues.
down. The second largest precinct, early voting precinct in this county.
Yes, we need to shut it.
Well, is that, well, let's vote on this. There's no more discussion. Okay, Sharon,
No.
Teresa,
No.
Doug,
Yay.
Debbie, and the chair says yes. Now we need to give. Okay, the next item on there is relocation of the We just voted to close the South Branch Library. 3-2.
We didn't vote because it's not unanimous. It's got to be unanimous.
Well, the motion carried.
The motion carried.
But it was not unanimous. So
Correct,
right now, it is. We have not
It's
closed
still there.
it.
It's still there. Now, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to consider relocating the Oxford early voting to the Expo Center.
Now, we've covered this pretty much. Okay,
No, we haven't.
I'll second the motion.
go ahead. Go ahead, Sharon.
Hold on a second. Early voting began in Oxford 26 years ago, probably the year 2000, 2001. And due to the population growth and increasing participation in early voting Oxford has been moved 4 times, but it has always remained in Oxford. So why are we going to change that now? The city of Oxford has adopted a resolution opposing the relocation of the Oxford Public Works. Most of the time we move a precinct because something happened and it's not available to us anymore. Like when school's closing or when the fire departments don't want us or the former police chief didn't want us at the city of Oxford site, we had to find another site. City of Oxford is not telling us we got to get out of the Public Works building. And if anybody has ever been in the Public Works, inside the Public Works building, it's a perfect place for early voting. It's got plenty of space to hold up to 172 ballot styles that we had once before. Do you know what the ballot styles are this year, Tanya, yet? No, we don't. Okay. 17,000 registered voters vote at Oxford Public Works. 10 out of the 15 precincts that we have in Granville County are surrounded in that area. As members of the Board of Election, we have the authority to open, close, and relocate precincts or voting sites, but we must exercise that authority responsibly. Every decision should be based on what is best for the voting public, supported by factual data, guided by fiscal responsibility, informed by an understanding of long-term impacts of the community that we took an oath of office to serve. We must also consider the practical realities of implementing and maintaining the decisions that we make. The choices that we're making today will outlast our terms on the board. Currently, we have 3 early voting sites that are staffed with trained, experienced judges, poll workers who are willing to work every scheduled day, hour, whether the election is a primary, general, municipal, presidential, or midterm. The sites are equipped with the supplies and equipment necessary and for the poll workers to guide the voters through the process. Today, members of the public, election officials, poll workers are watching to see what decisions we make. While they do not represent all 41,000 registered voters in Granville County or all 45 judges or all 150 poll workers, they represent the broader community. We should not make voting more difficult or less convenient. Voters should not have to wonder where they're going to vote from one election to another. One of the other issues that I see with what's been going on today is that we do have to take into consideration that we have a hard time getting poll workers to work and judges to be judges. And as I stated earlier, the age limit in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Having a larger site requires more complete, well, right now we're working with the state board implementing new rules that are going to reduce the time for us to process provisional ballots. And all of this changes going on, we're going to have more provisional ballots. And we had 10 days to process them, and now we've got 3 days. The poll workers have more reporting and paperwork that they have to do. If you're going to close South Branch, combine it with Tar River, have Oxford having to deal with, what do they do? It was 10,202 people that voted there during presidential. You're talking about moving sites to Tar River as well as here. You're looking at dark streets, deer running across, bad weather because October, is early voting, February is early voting. And that's going to be a challenge for the residents. That's going to be a challenge for the poll workers. people are gonna have to figure out new logistical arrangements on how they're gonna do. You know, when you come out of this Ag Expo, I'd be curious to see how many you gonna be able to get out of here, because there's not even a stop sign at the sign to come out of this place. And when you're looking at people coming down 15, tractor trailers, they're not doing the speed limit. And we're not gonna be making right turns. For the most part, we're gonna be trying to make left turns. I'm against, I'm totally frustrated what we're dealing with here. You want to close South Branch so you can put a site up north. What does that got to do with Oxford? What does that got to do with Oxford?
Well, everybody.
Tell me why we need to move Oxford.
I personally worked at Oxford Public Works.
And so did
as a
I.
poll worker.
I worked there as the chief precinct judge.
So have I. I've also done curbside and anything else you can think of there, through presidential elections and through midterms. I didn't see very many people walking up. Matter of fact, I saw nobody walking up. That's just a personal observation. That's not saying that it didn't happen.
Okay,
I'm just saying a personal observation. And to the public, okay? I do apologize for my comment earlier. You did have some good arguments. I heard nothing that wasn't already considered in my thought process before. Okay? Now, I'm looking at this strictly from a facilities and logistics. This is far better location, it is far better parking, it is far better lighting, it is a far better facility.
And you have
than Public
emergency
Works.
power.
It has emergency backup power. There's just, we hear about, oh, the parking lot's a mess. Well, this has got a great parking lot. Is somebody going to petition the city to repave the public works?
Well,
I
we
don't
could
know.
have thought about doing that if that's something we knew that you were considering. This is a situation that I'm getting the impression that you decided and the three of you thought this was a good idea, but you're not paying attention to what's going on. Good idea if nobody likes it, Doug.
The idea of using this facility as a voting location came to me many years ago. It wasn't something that just popped up in the last
Well, of course
6
not, but
months.
now you're on the board, and now you're using your right to be on the board to make a decision that you thought about years ago. People don't like it. It's not a Philadelphia show, okay? We're supposed to, we're here as a board to do what we need to do for the people of Granville County that we serve.
Yes.
Not what we think is a good idea.
I agree, 100%. That's why I've spent several years thinking about the pros and cons. I've considered them all, and from a logistics standpoint, and a safety standpoint, and everything else, I consider this to be the better location. Yes, it's a little bit more involved for travel, but I think overall, it's a win. Because it's actually a shade closer to the south end, which is where everything is growing.
Okay, so if you're concerned about it being a tad bit closer to the south end, why are we closing the very precinct that served the south end? Let's table this because the arguments are not there, the numbers are not there, and the money is definitely not there.
And by closing the one at the south end, it's going to put pressure on the county commissioners, isn't it?
Well,
I would like to hear the county commissioners tell this board why we don't have money for South Branch when we've had it for all these years.
Right.
They need to be talking to us about that. They want us to vote on something that we had no idea there was no money for South Branch. We knew there was no money for the Northern.
Okay.
And I'm thinking we're cutting out South Branch so we can pay for the Northern.
you know,
But there was no discussion among us that there was no money from the county commissioners.
And we're running out of space to even have a safe election in any facility that is owned by the county or the municipalities or whatever. I mean, because we've been kicked out of police department because they were all of a sudden decided to store files in the very room that we were using there. We were kicked out of several of the fire departments because one group said they didn't want their fire trucks to get wet, and another one didn't want people compromising their area, and so they moved us down to the library. I mean, this is not what our voting folks want us to do and how we need to do it. People have systematically dictated in the last couple of last 2 years.
The last 7 years, this has been going on. Board of Education don't even have the decency to tell us they closing schools. And then we find out we got to move a precinct because they're closing schools.
I mean, this level of change without justification is costing us money, and mostly it's costing us trust among the very people who came out here to support their right to vote, to advocate for themselves, to promote this thing that we call a democracy. Guys, I am ashamed to be part of this right about now. When you come to a meeting like this, you need to be more than prepared. You don't need to be blindsided by the very board that we're supposed to be all working to do impartial elections. Come on, guys. This is not what we should be presenting ourselves to the very people that we're supposed to be representing.
I'm not so sure.
Well, excuse me, Doug. Just a minute, let me say something. I understand, I'm so happy you all are here because you care. There's 40,000 voters in this county, and we have how many here, 150? You know what I mean? But,
we don't know how many people are listening to our live stream.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
I did want to say that it seems to me, I remember hearing at our last board meeting, the comment that there was only enough funding for 3.
It was said.
Yes.
Well, the last board meeting we had was a closed board meeting. We weren't talking about this. The last Granville County board meeting was a closed board meeting, and we were not talking about this subject.
So when we said we were going to have this.
We talked about having a meeting.
That's when we set this date.
We set this date to talk about this, but we did not talk about this because we're not supposed to talk. What wasn't closed, Debbie?
It wasn't a closed meeting.
The last Board of Elections meeting was a closed meeting.
All right.
We were dealing with a personnel issue.
Correct.
And then the subject came up, so then we immediately set this meeting up because we're not allowed to talk about board business unless we're in front of the public, those who do show up to come. The last board meeting we had was the 28th of May. The end of the meeting, what? We talked about having this meeting, but we didn't talk about any budget issues from the county.
Because you're right.
Yeah. As the chairman, you're privy to certain information and you have the decision to tell us or not. I was chairman, I know that. But we did not have a board meeting talking about the fact that the county doesn't have money for South Branch. I heard about not having money from up north at that meeting that we had when we were looking at the site up there. And that was last week.
I understand.
And the whole board wasn't at that meeting.
And, right. The meeting we did have, the closed meeting, at the end of it, when we were discussing this, I did say that the county manager said there was no money for.
Is that in the minutes, Debbie? Because I don't remember hearing that.
Well, it was the end of the meeting. I don't even think it was it wasn't part of the meeting. It was when we were getting ready to talk about this thing.
It was in the process of saying we need to have an open meeting to discuss this, because we've been requested to have a 4th voting location, and the county commissioner has advised us that there isn't funding for 4.
Exactly. The one up north, but we still have funding for the 3 we have. Now you're saying we don't have funding for South Branch. So that's making people think it's already been decided that we're gonna redirect the money for South Branch to the north. And so that's why we gotta close South Branch. We already have 3 precincts that we're paying for.
And it's in the budget.
But if you wanna have a northern precinct, then I guess you're gonna have to get rid of one of the other 3.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else over here?
Call the question.
Okay, we're gonna vote on it. Karen?
We're voting on moving Oxford to Ag Expo?
Correct.
No.
Teresa?
Not in favor of moving.
Doug?
Yay.
Debbie? And the chair says yes. So now, all this will go to the state. All this will go to the state. I encourage you to get with your county commissioners and tell them to get up off their purse and get, so we can have more voting places.
Let me say this about our county commission. The last election that we had, we were $94,407 above our budget. And that was as a result of reprinting the ballots from the Kennedy withdrawal from the presidential election, information requests, mailing notices to voters due to the precinct changes and all of that. So our county commissioners have stepped up to facilitate what we're supposed to be doing. But some of this, we're creating these money matters unnecessarily. It's one thing when somebody withdraws and we need to do the right thing. It's something else when people make requests, they have to be honored. All the printing, all the notices that every citizen has to get as a result of a voting precinct change has to be provided, and that costs money as well. Some things we understand and we know the cost of, but the magnitude of the expense of what we're getting ready to go through right now is astronomical, and our community should not want us to be spending our limited county tax dollars, because everybody here was not in favor of the last tax increase we had, the personal property tax. No, and we truly didn't want the sales tax. But anyway, guys, the money has to come from somewhere, and we can't have partisan government dictating how we divvy up our limited funds within our community for self-serving, self-promoting causes that does not benefit the electorate. Why don't we look at what's positive in our community and then facilitate that to make that work just a little bit better?
Aren't the voters in the north part of the community?
Aren't the voters in the south part of the community?
Yes, they are.
And have been doing
Yes,
a
they
wonderful
are.
job.
Yes, they are.
Hasn't the voting precinct in Oxford provided excellent service? Haven't the voting precincts, I mean, we're steadily closing them. We're renting all of them. And for what? Because somebody doesn't want their fire truck to get wet, or because they've moved files into a room. That costs us unnecessary money.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So we have plenty of money to take care of this?
I don't know. It's up to the county commissioners, yeah. The county commissioners.
Guys, we can't pit each group that has a responsibility to us as a community against each other. That is a failing community. Because if we can't work together, and if you can't trust us to represent the greater good, to do the right thing for the boards that we're on, what good is it to have a place called Oxford? What good is it to have a board of elections or county commissioners if we're going to have this level of frivolous spending for an agenda that nobody seems to quite understand what we're doing? And I'm on this board, and I can't understand for the life of me the comments that we've made here justifying have one over another. It works for this precinct, but that same argument doesn't work for the other. Yes, every community is deserving to have what they need, but when you can't afford it, you don't eat steak every day. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I hear what you're saying, Teresa, but you've also been in a lot of discussions when we sit there and we talk about how we're caught between a rock and a hard place. 99% of what we do is dictated in that law book.
Well, right now, we're not following it.
Okay, we are mandated by statute to do just about everything we do. Very little is up to our discretion. We have deadlines to meet. We have things that we have to accomplish. Yet that is dictated by the state. But we're set up where the funding comes from our county. There's a disconnect there. At one point, we're being told you have to do this. And at another point, well, we can't quite afford to do that.
Nobody's telling us we have to have a site up north.
We are trying.
Nobody's telling us we have to have a site up north.
You know, we are trying to make it across the board equal. Yeah, I know you don't see it that way. It's something. Okay, we're trying to get it that way. And we're trying to put pressure on so that we can get it that way.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. We agree to disagree as to the approach, but we're trying to accomplish the same thing. Trust me. Let's move to close. Yeah.
That's right.
I would like to, okay. Mr. Chairman, please. Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I move that we adjourn. A second. All for?
Yeah. We can
I
adjourn.
agree with that.
I said
Aye.
everything I can say.
Debbie. Vote.
Aye.
Unanimous to terminate the meeting. The meeting has been ended. We just voted on it. It was unanimous, so we voted to close the meeting. Thank you for coming. Yeah.